sometimes the path is not always clear. There's, conflicting ideas or options or whatever. The best way to resolve those sometimes is just to get on a call, spar it out, debate, and then ultimately come out of that meeting with a decision. So, we haven't replaced all meetings, but certainly the vast majority of meetings could be a Loom and are Looms at Atlassian, which then frees up the time for one, focused work, or two, to have those discussions, like deep discussions and debates in an actual live meeting. You touched on like camaraderie and all that sort of stuff. So at Atlassian, we're very intentional about these on-site kind of meetings that we have. So getting the team together at an office or whatever for both team building reasons, as well as just getting stuff done together as a team, whether it's like planning and strategy stuff or whatever. We call those ITGs, or intentional togetherness gatherings, which is like being just very intentional about everyone being in person, one place, one time. And we found that a little bit of in-person time like that can then sustain you over the next, 2 or 3 months through the Zoom calls and the Looms. And then you do it again a quarter later or whatever the cadence is. And that's enough to keep human beings going for the most part.
1, 2, 3, 4. Exit.
All right, Matt, good to have you on the podcast. How do I say your last name, by the way?
Oh, yeah, it's good to be here, Dave. My last name is DeVincentis. At least that's the way I say it. That's not how Italians would say it, but
DeVincentis. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I didn't expect, when I saw your name, I didn't expect an Italian guy. Where's your accent from? Where are you from?
Where I'm from, that's a difficult question. People ask that all the time. I'm like, I'm confused at this
Where's your
point.
voice from?
Yeah, exactly. So grew up in Australia, have lived in the States for the last 12 years. So
okay. All right, cool. And do you play golf at all?
I don't play golf.
Okay, all right, it's all good. Australia is supposed to be like one of the best golf destinations on earth, and to try to make a gap there. One day, I'd love to get there.
I mean, honestly, everything in Australia is good. The beaches, the wine, the golf. I mean, it's all good there, man. It's a great place.
Love that. Okay, what a clip right there. Let's clip that for the Australia tourism. That's an awesome pitch. So you're in the Bay. You're in the Bay Area now, and right now you're VP of product marketing at Atlassian. Tell me what you did before that, though. What brought you here in your career to this, running product marketing at one of the greatest SaaS companies there is out there? I think Atlassian's been a great story. Obviously, there's been a bunch of interesting things that have happened over the years, but I was looking you up before. I'm like, man, this guy was VP of marketing at Palo Alto Networks. He was at VMware. So you've had a great run in marketing with a background that a lot of listeners, I think, will understand. So I'd love to just kind of get your quick career story. How'd you become a marketing geek like the rest of us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And straight off the bat, hopefully it's not too controversial, but this was never my plan. I never planned to be a marketer, never thought I would be a marketer. This was an absolute just accident. I fell into it. So to give you a little bit of background, I started my career in IT as an engineer. Like first 10 years of my career, I was heavily technical on the tools, deploying softwares and servers and all of that sort of stuff. And then I went to business school, got an MBA. And I think like a lot of folks, when they go to business school, it's like your eyes just open up, right? There's a whole wide world out there. And then one thing led to another. And here I am now in product marketing in Silicon Valley, like 12 or 13 years later.
You know what? I don't have like a perfect tally of it, but I do feel like over the years, I've done dozens of interviews with product marketing leaders, and there's kind of there seems to be like a technical bent for some of the people who end up in product marketing in tech. And I'm curious if I wonder like how that's been an advantage for you as a former, engineer and someone on the technical side of things, like how that's translated into the product marketing. There seems to be some overlap there, I feel like.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think from my experience, product marketers often come from all walks of life. I actually think that we're perhaps the misfits that have maybe tried a bunch of things. Some of us have technical backgrounds. Some of us certainly don't. I think probably the best product marketer I've ever met actually had a background in neuroscience and philosophy, and was just a master of understanding how people think and why they, behave in certain ways and make decisions and things like that. But yeah, certainly a lot of product marketers are technical. I personally think that's both a blessing and a curse. So what I mean by that is it is a blessing in the sense that, it's relatively easy for me or someone with a technical background to understand the technology, the problem that it solves for customers, et cetera. but the curse of knowledge is a real thing as well, right? And so sometimes I and others that I know have technical backgrounds in product marketing can sometimes bias a little bit too much towards the features and the functions and the bits and the bytes. And I think we all know, or those of us that have been in the game, understand that that's not why customers buy things. And so sometimes pulling ourselves back from the love of the technology is a hard thing. So I don't know, man. I think it's both a blessing and a curse, but it
Yeah.
certainly helped me to get.
It goes both ways. I think the positive of it is I do think that I think to be great at product marketing, you can't fake your way around the product that you're working on. You really got to know it. And so I think if you're just a great storyteller on that side, but you don't have the technical chops of really knowing how things work, I think that shows up. And if you can do both, though, if you can really understand how something works and you're great at explaining it in a way that people care about, that's the dream scenario.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think for me, more important is having that passion or interest in understanding the technology as well. I think that's important. I don't think every product marketer has to have a technical background, but you have to want to understand the products and learn and have that kind of propensity to be a learner and want to understand how stuff works. If you don't have that, I think it's difficult.
Okay, so you spent a bit of time in a director product marketing role at VMware. What were your what's a main lesson or two? And I don't even mean specific to the company, but just you as building your career. Like when you look at your couple of years at VMware in the product marketing role, what's a lesson that you've taken with you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And maybe just to place that period of time for the listeners as well. So I was at VMware in what I think was probably like a golden era for VMware. Unfortunately, more recently, it's been a bit of a challenge for those folks. But for me, I was there for what it was probably like 2015 to 2019, like something around that period of time where virtualization was exploding. It was all about the software-defined data center. Not everything was public cloud just yet. Pat Gelsinger was the CEO, by the way, one of the most amazing CEOs, certainly that I've had the pleasure to work with, but I think, across Silicon Valley, just an amazing leader, an amazing human being. And I think, what I probably took away from that experience most was, so I was working in the network virtualization part of VMware, which started out as a small acquisition, ended up being a multi-billion-dollar business, and learning how to grow and scale a product from very, very small to large within a large organization that already was doing, 5 to 10 billion a year in revenue, was an interesting experience, and I learned a lot doing that. Lessons that I applied at Palo Alto Networks and now applying it at Atlassian. It is a difficult thing to do, but an exciting thing to do, grow something from small to big within a large.
Take us into the role of what role does product marketing play at a company of that size? I think on the smaller scale startup side of it, it's like product marketing is, making the website copy, making the decks, helping sales close deals. Ideally, you measure something like that through conversion rate down the funnel, like, win rate. But I always wonder when I see a huge company like that, like what's your focus? How do you move the needle? What should product marketing be doing as a company gets bigger?
Yeah, as it gets bigger and sort of at that scale, and again, just to place this, I was at VMware from like 5 to 10 billion in revenue. I think, during that time, we went from like, I don't know, 15,000 employees to 25,000, something like that. Someone will fact check me and I'll have that slightly wrong, but that kind of a scale. And I think at that point, the go-to-market strategy side of things is probably the most important role as a product marketer. Typically at that scale, you've got folks running the website copy or whatever. You've got people figuring out your email nurture campaigns, all that sort of stuff. You don't have to do everything, but I think you do have to be an expert in understanding who your customers are, why they would be interested in your products or why they buy your products, how you should sell your products, and then bringing that together, I think is, from a very high level, like the fundamentals of product marketing in an organization of that scale. So yeah, understanding your customers, understanding your selling model and how you'll reach those customers, and optimizing that, I think, is the most important role of product marketing at that scale.
How are you measured as a product marketer?
At VMware or in general?
No, VMware. Let's talk about VMware.
Yeah. So this is probably another big takeaway that I had from VMware and that experience there. we very much looked at, ultimately the outcome that we were trying to drive, which at the end of the day is revenue and revenue growth, and working backwards from there. And so, one of the sort of mottos we had at that point, I got from one of my mentors. I can't remember exactly who, but it was own the outcome, not the task. In other words, as a product marketer on any given day, what you might be doing is, I don't know, I'm making it up, building a slide deck, writing a messaging doc, whatever it is, that's the task. But you have to hold yourself accountable and own the outcome, which is ultimately driving revenue, working backwards from that pipeline, whatever it is. In other words, success for product marketing or marketing more broadly can't just be, whatever the marketing metrics may be that you're tracking on a day-to-day basis. You have to care about the business outcomes and ultimately what's driving the business. In other words, like, you can't celebrate success and high five if you're hitting your marketing goals. If your salespeople are missing their numbers, they're getting laid off, the stock price is tanking. At the end of the day, you have one stock price. And
love that. By the way, we did this event a couple months ago, and we had Kim Storin on, and she, at the time, she was the CMO of this company called Zayo Group. Now she's the CMO at Zoom, and she had the exact same thing that you said. It became this little pithy little soundbite, and she said it. Sometimes I mess it up, but she said, marketing can never be in the green when the company's in the red.
I love that.
And it's like, damn. And what you just said there even is just like, yes, we have this amazing community. And so we try to help answer questions and help people. And it's like, it almost does always come back to like the way you simplified it there. It's kind of like, it kind of always does come back to revenue. It kind of always does come back to business outcomes. And I've been in that position where we're like talking about, hey, look at the podcast downloads and LinkedIn impressions, and then it's like, well, we haven't hit our sales goal in 90 days. And so nobody on that side of the house wants to feel that. So I love that framing from you.
I think this is an interesting topic. Let's pick this apart a little bit because
Okay.
oftentimes I feel this tension even within my team and how I measure success on my team. For example, product marketers I've felt over my journey are often uncomfortable measuring themselves, their own performance based on pipeline or pipeline numbers. Because they'll always say, well, product marketing, create pipeline, salespeople create pipeline. If our pipeline numbers aren't doing well, it's because our salespeople don't know how to sell or they're not very good or whatever else. Like, okay, but we have a role.
Wait, people on your team say that? They would never, we would never say things like that. What are you talking about?
Certainly not at Atlassian, maybe at other places over my career, but I've certainly heard it where the tension is like, well, I don't directly control that. Therefore, how can you measure me against that?
Yeah.
But maybe you don't directly control it, but you certainly influence it. As a product marketer, you're building sales content, you're training and enabling, you have a role to play there. So you have to care about the outcome, not the task or the input. And I think the other thing that's really important about this and advice that I always give people as they're coming up in their product marketing career is if you embrace that sort of a mindset, you then start to get a seat at the table with the broader business. In other words, like, the CEO or the GM or whatever, even the VP of products, whoever it is, I don't care about leads and website visits or whatever. They care about revenue growth. They care about like whatever other business metric it is they're trying to move.
Yep.
Care about those things, and you lean in and you speak that language. You get a seat at the table in those business conversations, and it will help you grow and elevate in your product marketing career.
So, okay, I'll volley back with you. That's a good thing. But I think how can we help, like, because I hear you, but then I also hear the person who's listening to this, who's at maybe a bigger company. Maybe it's Atlassian, maybe it's ServiceNow, maybe it's HubSpot, whatever. And it's like, I hear you, but like, I'm kind of a couple layers removed from what I'm doing, and like my job doesn't always necessarily tie to sales. And so maybe I'm the community manager, the social media person, I'm on the brand side, and it's like we're supposed to create good things that get attention and awareness for our company, but it's very hard to be like, how do we know that like 6 people ended up buying from that conversation? And I think it's an important discussion, because I think we need to talk more about how marketing is not this perfect science of like step 1, step 2, step 3. But how can you, like, if you're maybe in a more junior role in the company or you have a job that's not demand gen or very directly tied to revenue, how do you tie that back? I'm sure there's a way to do it with a story of some kind, but how would you coach somebody on that?
Yeah, maybe there's a way to tie it back, but maybe there's not. So in my opinion, I don't think we always have to draw a direct line from, using your example, the social media post that we did or whatever it is, to revenue. You don't have to draw a direct line to that. What I'm saying and suggesting is you just have to care about it. You have to care about the outcome. You have to hold yourself accountable and have the mindset, or embrace the mindset that I care about revenue or whatever. I'm using that as a, as a proxy, but whatever the business outcome it might be that your business cares about in this given quarter or year, you have to care about that, because then I think it will encourage you to make the most optimal decisions towards that ultimate outcome versus, whatever the metric is that is right in front of you, or whatever the task is that you happen to be doing today. I think it's more of a mindset than having to draw a direct line from your task to revenue or whatever it is.
I love that, because that's a perfect example of like the nuance in marketing. And it's like, not everything that we do is meant to be direct response. I used to work with this woman. Her name is Kate Adams. She's a CMO at, I think the company's called GitKraken now. But anyway, I worked with her at Drift, and she would be in a marketing meeting. She would be like, okay, everybody's going to talk about what they're working on. And then I'm going to ask like why and how that ties back to revenue. And it was perfect, because it was like, oh yeah, the creative person who's making a video, of course, we don't think that, 5 people are going to watch the video and then buy our product. But she asked the video person was like, well, the thing that I'm working on supports the product, the product marketing team's launch for this campaign next week. And it was hearing how, yes, not everything's directly measurable to revenue, but hearing how everybody on the team is aligned towards like, small pieces that add to this bigger thing. I thought that was like a really helpful way to do that.
I think that's spot on. I think it's that mindset. If everyone embraces that mindset, you'll crush it. And don't get me wrong, like you need to measure all of those other things. All of those are leading indicators. They're good input metrics. At Atlassian, we measure a lot of things. That's important, but you have to have that mindset of owning the outcome, not the task.
Okay, this is a good one for you. I got some back channel secret intel from my producers here that well, first let's just confirm this fact, because I've gotten caught before. Were you a firefighter in a past life?
I was a firefighter in the past life. Yep.
Okay, was that before you got into tech, or what? I need the backstory there first.
Yeah, it was before, and then I ended up being a volunteer firefighter for more than 10 years while I was working full time as well. So did it for quite a while.
Nice. Well, huge respect to you. I thank you for doing your part and giving back.
Cool.
That also must put into perspective your job. You're like anything that I'm working on. I've 2 of my best friends are both first responders, and I'm like, anytime I have a bad day because like something somebody wrote on LinkedIn or something, I'm like, well, he had to deal with some real shit. So
yeah, I find the same thing. Like first responders, veterans, these folks who just got like a different perspective. Well,
they're like, I'm sorry, somebody said somebody told you they don't like what you said on your little marketing podcast. I'm sorry, Dave. So anyway, okay, this relates to this. So firefighter. Okay, one thing I'm thinking about is there's a lot of busy work that comes up inside of a high performing marketing team. And I love this idea. Hey, we're going to do all these things. We're going to all be aligned together, but stuff just piles up. And I think one of the hardest parts in marketing today, where, everything is marketing, is sometimes everything feels like a fire drill of some kind. And I'm just curious to like, how have you kind of taken that mindset and adapted it to marketing? This would be a great post for you one day, by the way, 10 lessons being a firefighter taught me about B2B marketing.
Yeah.
But I've heard that you're one of the good leaders on the team for figuring out like, how to decipher what's a priority and what's not. Maybe you can talk us through some of that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, firstly, I think a lot about my firefighting experience now that relates to business and marketing. And I think there's a lot of lessons there across leadership, decision-making, and yeah, certainly dealing with fire drills. So firstly, yeah, from a fire drill perspective, I mean, it's inevitable. Like fire drills will happen. I think first and foremost is just like in firefighting, you have to respond, even if you think it might be a false alarm or whatever. You should still respond, and you should take every fire drill seriously. With that said, I think triaging is also really important. So, not every fire drill needs to be a P0. And as a leader, part of your job, I think, is to respond, but then triage and filter. So you don't necessarily need to pass down every fire drill to your team. So one of the things that I try and do as a leader is, get in the middle of that, lead from the front, but then filter any fire drill that's coming in. So I have the ability then to, pass down what's important, what's real, or, potentially filter out and ignore something that perhaps isn't.
Yeah, maybe. And even like, some things there are some fire drills, like something is broken, right? Or whatever. I have a story actually. That's one time the CEO and he sent a couple of us in the early days of the company, sent a couple of us to go play golf. He didn't play golf, but he was invited to this tournament, this charity tournament, and he sent me and 3 other people on the team to go to this golf tournament. Meanwhile, the same day, the website's broken. So while I'm at this thing, he's messaging me on Slack the whole time. You need to come back and fix this. I'm like, what should I do? Do you want me to be? Did you want me to be at this thing that you sent me to, or do you want me to fix this problem? So we fixed it in Slack, and it's all good. But it's not always about the fire drill. I think it's about also there's just so many ideas. Like, hey, we could do this. Hey, check this out. And I'm the biggest culprit of this. How do you balance like all the things that come in marketing's way? Because you want to be, I think you want to be open across the organization. And I think smart people know that like marketing is not the only smart people at this company. We have everybody. We should be getting ideas from everybody, but it can be too much when you're just getting ideas from left and right. Do you have a way to like prioritize your work? Think about what some of the stuff that comes in, how do you balance all the ideas that come in, especially as you get into a larger company?
Yeah, I think prioritization is key, like you touched on it. But I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they think that prioritization is the process of putting all of the things in an order, right? From, whatever 1 to 100 or whatever it might be. What I actually think is important about prioritizing is figuring out where you draw the line and what is below that line and what are the really important things or the really great ideas that we're very intentionally not going to do. Like that is real prioritization. And so it's a hard thing to do because what you're basically saying is, yeah, that's a really important thing, or that is a really great idea, and we're not going to spend a single minute thinking about it.
But you don't get to do that unless you've clearly defined the things that you're not going to go spend time on, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then I think, part of that is figuring out, well, what is going to move the needle the most? What do we think is going to have the biggest return on our time, on our money, all of the other resources that we have available to us? But I think people make that mistake a lot with prioritization, where they just put things in an ordered list and still attempt to chip away at all of them. I think what's most important is figuring out where you draw that line and very intentionally not doing very important things.
Nice. Okay, I want to shift back into the topic of leadership a little bit. So then you go to Palo Alto Networks and you rise to VP of marketing there. What's the difference in your career? Getting promoted to VP, becoming a VP of marketing at a company of that scale, how do you articulate what you're responsible for and how that's different than like being more of the IC early in your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there were like a lot of steps along the way there. So it's not like such a sudden jump where all of a sudden it's a whole new world. But I think...
Yeah, I guess the thing that I'm trying to tap into is like for those who have ambitions to be a VP of marketing, CMO, leader of marketing in a high performing organization. I want to just, since you are that, I want to unpack like what's the mindset that's different. Not necessarily asking like, how did you get there? But once you're there, for me, I got promoted to VP and it was like, oh yeah, you're not doing all the things that you did anymore. Now you have a team. There's 30 people on the team. You're expected to do this. Your peers are the CEO and everything. And I'm just curious to hear that evolution for you.
Yeah, there's probably 2 things that immediately come to mind. First and foremost, and I think this, regardless of whether you're a VP, director, senior director, I think this is an evolution over time where as your team begins to scale, your job as a manager or a leader in that particular instance is less about, doing the work, being good at the craft, executing, and more about your ability to lead and inspire the people around you to, essentially rally and follow you and help you to execute against whatever the vision or strategy is that you've laid out. And so your ability to inspire and to motivate people, I think that is your number one priority as a leader, again, whether it's director, senior director, VP, CMO, whatever, as you get further and further in your career and your organization scale, I think that becomes increasingly more important. So that's number one. Number two is, I think, at that kind of level, VP plus, in a marketing role at a company like Palo Alto Networks or Atlassian, you need to start thinking about the whole company. So you still may be responsible for, just one product line or just one business unit, but you need to think like the CMO or like the CEO and be able to make decisions that are in the best interest of the entire company. Now, sometimes that might be suboptimal for your product line or business unit at this specific point in time. But I think it's really important as you elevate in your career to have a broader perspective that is beyond your own remit or goals or whatever it is, area of responsibility, and start to think like the CMO or the CEO about the whole company.
Yeah, love that. It's such an important lesson because I can think of myself earlier in my career being like, I just don't understand why my boss won't let us go do X. And it's like, oh, that's because she sees like 3 other moves that you don't know because it's all confidential inside of the company. And it's like, oh, this person's about to get fired, or like this, we're about to acquire this company. And there's just so many moves that you don't see. But now you have a seat and you have to see around everything else.
Exactly.
So can you tell me about StrengthsFinder and how that has played a role in your career as a leader?
That's oddly specific. So you have been doing some background digging there. Kudos to you. StrengthsFinders, that's an interesting one. So my executive coach, who I've been with for years, she is an amazing woman, very, very helpful, kind of introduced me many years ago to this idea of strengths-based leadership. So basically, I'll get to StrengthsFinder in a minute, but it's this idea that, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. If you can turn your strengths into superpowers, something that you can be best in the world at, you're going to have an impact that's exponentially greater than someone who's able to improve their weaknesses slightly. And so I've embraced this mindset at work, through my personal life at home. And I think it's just a really powerful way to live. It's like, we're all good at some things, we're all bad at some things. For the things that I'm bad at, I've got other people around me in my life and at work who can fill in those gaps. The things that I'm uniquely good at, man, I'm going to make sure that I'm the best in the world at those things. And I think that will enable me, and I've seen it, to have a greater impact than otherwise.
If you could give me a behind the scenes a little bit, not personally, but as a marketing leader, what is one of those strengths, and just curious what one of those weaknesses is?
For me personally, you mean?
Yeah.
So I think one of my strengths, and we'll get to StrengthsFinder again in just a second, is self-assurance. This is a StrengthsFinder strength. In fact, let me talk about StrengthsFinder for a bit. It's
Sure.
it's a program developed by a company called Gallup. Many people might have done it. You do this assessment, and it essentially, tells you the things that you are strong at and not so strong at. So one of my strengths is self-assurance. So in other words, I am maybe overly confident, maybe when I shouldn't be, perhaps. I describe myself as like underprepared and overconfident. But effectively what that means is I have a strong belief in myself, where we're going, and some of these sorts of things. And so that is one of the ways that I'm able to help inspire the people around me. People that are not too sure, maybe a little bit stuck, need a little bit of that extra kind of push. I bring them along with me, give them the confidence that we can go get it. And so that is
You're like, you see that burning building over there? We're all going in. We're going to save them. Let's go.
Exactly. I think that's one of the jobs of a leader, is to inspire hope when everything else has been abandoned. It's like,
Yeah.
you can lead the way. So I don't know, that's one of my strengths. From a weakness perspective, I'm just trying to think. There are so many. I won't give you a StrengthsFinder weakness, but look, me as a marketer, I am not terribly visually creative. I'm terrible at making slides, terrible at making, helping to provide guidance and decisions on creative for web and other things. I need good people around me that are creative like that, visually creative. I think I'm creative in other ways. I know that about myself. I could spend years trying to make that better, and I might make a 1 percentage point difference. Instead, I'm going to invest my energy in the things that I'm good at and turn them into superpowers. That's how I live.
Love that. You can be better now. I feel like I'm the same way, but now I can like go to ChatGPT and I can say, here's something that I like. Can you explain this in terms that a designer would use? And I could be like, hey, you see this?
There you go.
Tell-
By the
tell me
way,
a lot.
you know who I think screwed this up for all of us? And I have a lot of respect for him and all the rest, but like Kobe Bryant, amazing player, love that guy. He has these 10 rules. I don't know if you know about this. And rule number 3 is work on your weaknesses. I just think that's wrong. I think that's the wrong approach. And certainly earlier in my career, I spent a disproportionate amount of time working on my weaknesses and really getting nowhere. When I flipped that mindset, turning my strengths into superpowers, man, it was a massive unlock for my career and my life.
So I got it through when I was at this company called Drift. I worked for CEO David Cancel. He was my mentor, and he put me on this book early by Peter Drucker called Managing Oneself, and it's like short, 40 pages, and I have this one page highlighted in there, and he basically says that like. He says what you're saying. He's like, don't work on your weaknesses. He's like, take the area that you're already good at and become great. And so if you are a great writer and you're like a B+ writer, become an A+ writer. And the gains from being like the A+ writer are going to outperform anything versus like, let's say you're trying to up your creative game. You're like a D in creative. He's like, you're only going to be able to elevate that to like a C or a B. So double down on your strengths. And that was a point where like, I was really into writing and storytelling, but I was obsessed with this was like 2015, Silicon Valley era. I was obsessed with like growth and growth hacking, and I wanted to get in that world. He's like, that's not your muscle. Like your thing is writing and storytelling. He's like, I promise you your career, you will 10x your career if you just double down on this area. And it's so liberating to have somebody tell me that, because I feel like, yeah, we're always told like, you got to be well-rounded. You got to work on the thing. Like maybe if you're Kobe Bryant, like, and you play basketball, then yes, you got to be able to use your left hand or something. Right. But I think in the business world, I love that. And I think it's even more important now. Like, what is your thing? Like, can you, instead of trying to be okay in all the areas, what is your thing? So it's refreshing to hear you say that for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, when I'm building high performance teams and I'm hiring people, I look for that now. I look for extreme strengths versus looking for a lack of weakness, if that makes sense. I just think it's a really powerful concept.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you related to the Strength Finder thing. So is this something that you go through with your team? Is it like, DISC or kind of one of these it's not a personality assessment, but is it something that everyone goes through together and you kind of get a read and figure out how to better work together?
Yeah, for sure. You can. And I do. I use it for all of my teams. Certainly my leadership team, sometimes my entire organization. I've done that in the past as well. So yeah, it's an assessment that people can do similar to DISC. But the thing I like about strengths is it just like, it's so positive and optimistic. It's about the things that you're good at and how, as a team, you can be, greater than the sum of your parts if you all understand each other's strengths and use them together.
What's been the benefit of having an executive coach?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. It just seems so obvious to me. Like, in sports, if you want to be a high performance athlete, you need coaches. Like the thing I think about all the time is like, Steph Curry, like greatest 3-point shooter that's ever played the game, still has a coach. He's got multiple coaches. Like
right.
we can always get better. And I think sometimes, I don't know, it's hard to sort of see yourself from the outside and having that outside perspective and someone who can observe and provide guidance and just help you work through situations maybe that you've never seen before. There's just so many benefits to having an executive coach. I'd encourage anyone who's in a position to do that to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you're in product marketing at a $5 billion revenue company. Go make the plan for next year. you don't talk to anyone outside of your company about that. It's crazy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I've heard that you guys have a internal goal. I don't know if this is true or a rumor at Atlassian, which is to be the best marketing team anyone's worked on. Is that from Atlassian or a previous job?
From Atlassian, that's my team's goal this year.
Okay.
Or one of the many goals. Of course, we have some business goals as well. But that's always my goal as a leader of a team. I've been fortunate to be part of many amazing teams over the years at work, in sports, in firefighting, and it's always my goal as a leader of any of those teams for this to be the best team and the best experience that anyone's ever worked on or anyone's ever been part of. And yeah, absolutely, that is my goal. I think once you embrace that mindset and have a goal like that, then it's on you to figure out, well, what are the elements that we need to make this the best team you've ever been part of. And it's different from team to team. Different teams need different sorts of care and feeding, but yeah, that's my goal.
I love that. It just sets the tone. It sets the culture. I like when there are goals beyond just the like very measurable business goals. Like, our job is to deliver X number of leads or pipeline. It's like, I don't know, coach my son's little league team, and the number one goal is have fun. And it's like, that seems so dumb and silly, but it's like, you need other things. Like, why are we going to show up for this job every day? Like, let's build an awesome team that we're all proud of. And 10 years from now, they were like, oh, you worked on Matt's team at Atlassian. Like, that was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could coach my kids' little league team as well. And I think the teams over the years that I've seen perform well in little league are the ones that have fun and enjoy doing it. And
Yes.
the rest of it will come. And so if we relate it back to work, like if it's an enjoyable experience, people are inspired, people are working on things that they get, joy or satisfaction out of, the results, the whatever, the metrics, the business, all of that stuff will come. Conversely, if you have a team that's not having fun, that don't trust each other, none of it's going to work. So yeah, that's always my focus, number one, first and foremost. And then the business, will take care of itself.
What do you think it takes to, I don't want to get like super meta with this, but I just like, what do you think it takes to be the greatest marketing team? How do you push your team to be great? Is it like, go find inspiration, be super creative, go for a walk and be super creative? Like, what is that? How do you channel that? What are some, leadership lessons to push your team to be better?
Yeah. I mean, two things come to mind. I don't know if this is going to be terribly profound, but this is how I think about it. Number one, which is foundational, is you've got to build trust. Like, trust is the foundation of anything as it relates to a team. Maybe this comes back to my firefighting days a little bit. Like, man, in that situation, if you don't trust your team and that everyone's going to be performing, that is literally life or death. So,
Yeah.
the stakes are a bit higher there. But
Well, I think about this is a huge thing in the marketing sense of like any team that I've been on, or when the team has trust of you, when they know they're going to like do something and Matt's not going to be pissed about it, like when you can that's where you can really get the creative freedom and the freedom to do, to innovate in marketing. It's the teams that have no trust, or the CEO is trying to micromanage every little task in the marketing team. It's the ones that the CEO has trust in, or the marketing leader has trust in. That's where the creativity stuff, that's where the creative comes from, right?
Absolutely, because then you can take the big swings without fear that you'll, lose your job or your boss is going to get upset or whatever if, you make a mistake or there's a failure. So that's number one, I think, trust first and foremost. And then number two, and again, this is not profound. I know that a lot of people think this way, but just this idea of 10x thinking, just like, taking big swings, a few big bets that, will really move the needle in a big way versus, incremental improvement over time. I think, those two things combined give people the license to think out of the box, think big, be creative, try things, know that it's safe to fail if it doesn't work out. But man, when you hit that home run from time to time, you're going to have such a big impact.
All right, tell me about product marketing at Atlassian. Your role there, VP product marketing at Atlassian. Just curious as like where that team sits in the company, how many people are on the team, what are you all responsible for? I want to go behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. Product marketing at Atlassian rolls up into the CMO. So it's part of the marketing organization. We don't have separate structural business units like a VMware. We have these business units that had a general manager, and each one had, marketing, product, engineering, all the rest. Atlassian has a functional structure. So we roll up to the CMO.
Oh, and by the way, this is where I was going to try to get. So you have and are you responsible for like, how do all the products work at Atlassian? Like, obviously over the years, there's been Loom was the big acquisition. There's multiple other tools inside of Atlassian, Jira. We used to use Confluence back in the day. Do all those things roll up into your product marketing like org? The company's not set up by product lines that you were saying?
It's not. So I'm responsible for the core products. So yeah, Jira, Confluence, Loom, those core products. There are two other product marketing teams responsible for other products at Atlassian, but we all roll up to the CMO. So it's not like this, business unit type structure with separate product organizations. We roll up to the CMO.
Okay. All right. That's cool. You got fun products though. Those are good.
Really fun. And I would just say, not just product marketing, but work in general at Atlassian is unlike any other company that I've ever worked for or seen. Like the way that we work is pretty unique, I think pretty interesting. And it's culturally just like an amazing place to be.
I mean, you got to tell me, okay, you got, no, I'm going to say, well, why? All right, but let's go. Go ahead. Tell me why.
I'm a good marketer, man. I got a whole
That's a good pitch. I'm interested. All right. I could sign a 10-day contract.
All right. You're on the hook. You want to take the next meeting. Why is it so amazing? So one of the things about Atlassian, and this is something that we, work with our customers on as well, is this idea of asynchronous work. So, I don't know, I'm sure you feel this, but let me just go out there and say it. Like, work post pandemic sucks. Like, it really sucks. Like endless Zoom calls all day, every day. At least this is what my life used to be like pre-Atlassian. I'm sure most people at my level or generally in marketing could relate. Like, you have these back-to-back Zoom calls all day, and then you've got to try and get your work done like in the mornings, at night, on the weekends. Like, it's just hell.
It's insane. My brother-in-law sent me a screenshot of his calendar, and it was like meetings from 9 to 5. And then there's like, it actually became a meme. He sent, and then like before 9 is this open block. And then after 5 is this open block. And that's where you're supposed to do work. But then at the same time, like, you're a real person. You have a life outside of work. You have a family, you have kids. It is insane. I could go for hours on like why does everything have to be a meeting? Look, but for years, I actually made an ad. I made my own ad. I'll have to find it, like a couple of years ago. I just like to make random ads sometimes in Canva, and I made one for Loom, and it was like the logo of Loom, and the copy was like when the meeting could have been a Loom or something like that. And it's like that it's so ridiculous. I try to take, if I can do it, if it's not a thing that I have to be on video for, even now, I'm like, if I have to take a call, can it be a phone call? So I don't have to be just sitting here like staring at my screen for it. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And then you layer in, Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever your company uses, where you're just getting peppered all day with notifications because people are hitting you up because it's so easy to send a message these days. Like, yeah, work sucks. Work post-pandemic has been hell. So what we're trying to do at Atlassian is change that model where we sort of introduce this notion of asynchronous work, which is where as much work as you can possibly do that is not real time, like not people sitting on a Zoom call or, whatever, we do. So what that means in practice is things like, instead of having a meeting, like we mentioned Loom, like we use Loom heavily here at Atlassian. For those who don't know about Loom, it's one of our products. This is not a pitch, but like it's essentially the ability to record a quick video and send it out to people. And it's super quick, super easy to record and send out, but essentially replaces the need for a meeting. So, there were a whole lot.
Is that a noun? If I say send me a Loom, that's a noun, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
become,
we say it that way. I say just like Dan will send me a message. He's like, hey, I know you're out today. I made you a 5-minute Loom with the updates on the metrics from this week. And it's like, I can watch that at my own time. I watch it at 1.5x. So it's a 2-minute video. My only beef, this is not a Loom beef. This is a people. It does, though. You've probably seen this. There's creep, right? It's just like anything else. It's like a 30-minute meeting. Everyone books an hour. Someone's like, I'm going to make you a 5-minute Loom, that 5-minute Loom always becomes like 17 minutes. And so you have to put in the work. It's not just like, it doesn't mean like make a shitty kind of fast update. Like I want to put in my work so I can make you a tight 2 to 5 minute Loom that you're actually going to watch and pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure. But like, for example, some of the ways that I use Loom. So I don't know, like most marketing leaders, I'm sure we have a monthly metrics meeting, right? Where we review the monthly metrics. It, historically has been like a 30-minute meeting where you'll go through the metrics, blah, blah, blah. It's all pretty boring, 50 people on the call, whatever. I send those out as a Loom now. And so a couple of things. One, it then becomes any amount of time that it needs to be. So some months it's like 4 minutes. Other months it's like 32 minutes or whatever. But I don't know about you. I think like normally when we get into meetings, somehow all of the time gets filled up, right? And like you don't necessarily need to. So that's one. But
because I got to talk about your weekend for the first 6 minutes of the meeting. I'm sorry.
Exactly. So there's that. It fills whatever time it needs. But then, as you said, you can also play it at like 1.5x. Like I don't know about you, but I'm a 1.5x guy. Maybe I'll dial it back to 1.3 if it's dense and I need to consume it. But then add another layer on top. I can also do that while I'm at the gym or, while I'm commuting to, the airport to go fly somewhere or whatever. Like we don't need 50 people to be in the same place at the same time on that Zoom call. At Atlassian, like we're a global company like most, but we're headquarters in Sydney. Like half our team's in Sydney, half our team's in the US, but like roughly. We've got others around the world, but like a big chunk of us is split across pretty major time zones. It means that Sydney folks aren't having to get up early in the morning and we're not having to, stay up late. We can just communicate in a very fluid manner, asynchronously using Loom. It's been a game changer. And it's actually opened my calendar up so I can do work during the day or talk to folks like yourself, which is
Love that.
fun.
And how do you? So then, what should be a meeting? Do you have the criteria on that? Like when should we meet? Because I guess theoretically, I could do almost all of my job on basically the main tools we probably use to run our business is Slack, email, Loom.
Yeah.
I could do it all. So what's your criteria? Because sometimes you do have to meet. I understand that there's vibes and camaraderie, and some things have to have meetings. Do you have a bar for that?
Yeah, for sure. The vibes and camaraderie, though, that should be in person. I'll talk about that in just a moment. That's a big part of how we work at Atlassian. But what should be, a Zoom call or a meeting like this is something that requires real-time debate and then decisions to be made coming out of that. So, sometimes the path is not always clear. There's, conflicting ideas or, options or whatever. The best way to resolve those sometimes is just to get on a call, spar it out, debate, and then ultimately come out of that meeting with a decision. So, we haven't replaced all meetings, but certainly the vast majority of meetings could be a Loom and are Looms at Atlassian, which then, frees up the time for one, focused work, or two, to have those discussions, like deep discussions and debates, in an actual live meeting. You touched on like camaraderie and all that sort of stuff. So at Atlassian, we're very intentional about these on-site kind of meetings that we have. So getting the team together, at an office or whatever for, both team building reasons, as well as just, getting stuff done together as a team, whether it's like planning and strategy stuff or whatever. We call those ITGs, or intentional togetherness gatherings, which is like being just very intentional about everyone being in person, one place, one time. And we've found that a little bit of in-person time like that can then sustain you over the next, 2 or 3 months through the Zoom calls and the Looms. And then you do it again a quarter later or whatever the cadence is. And that's enough to keep human beings going for the most part.
Yeah, I think it's super important too, and I think I discredited it for a while, like kind of post pandemic, and I think particularly I feel that, and just like now, there was a stretch of years where I just was working for myself, and then we hired a team, and so we have a small team here, and I noticed a huge difference in, especially with new people coming on the team, how I sound and how I come off in Slack and email is completely different once you know how I am in real life.
Yep.
And I think it opens the doors for me to have a sense of humor, for me to be real, for us to be, and now that's just me, right? Now all of us together. And so I think there's that whole level of just like hanging out in person, like sets the proper context for like, now I know what Matt, first of all, I know what Matt's lower half looks like. I know his humor. I know his style. Like you really get a sense of somebody's personality. So I do think that's super important. I'm not of the like fully return to work in office camp. I think that's also silly, especially for people. Look, I think there's a generational, like in my 20s, absolutely got to go to an office. That's the place to be. But now that I have kids, I have a family, like I'm not going to go back to an office. And so I think that's a perfect medium, which I can get down with.
Yeah. And at Atlassian, we're fully distributed. We have no office mandates. And yeah, what you just said comes back to what I was talking about earlier, just building that foundation of trust with your team. You build that trust. Part of that's being in person, breaking bread with each other. And then, when you get that one-line email or Slack message from Dave, he's not pissed at you. It's just like, it's just needed to send you a quick message. You trust him already. It's all good.
All right, let's wrap up and talk a little bit about AI. What, as a product marketing leader in particular, I can think of a ton of use cases in my head. I'm curious at what are you all talking about, thinking about at Atlassian inside of product marketing, and how AI is going to change what we're doing in marketing?
Yeah, it's a good question. And look, firstly, I'm not an AI expert. I'm, just another product marketing guy. So I'm not sure I'm going to have any
There's plenty of, well, look, go to LinkedIn. There's plenty of AI experts. So if you can't trust Matt, go to LinkedIn and you'll find someone. So we got you. You're not an AI expert. You're still on my podcast. I'm still asking you though.
That's fine. Yeah, there's plenty of people who can pretend to be AI experts. I'm not going to pretend to play that game. But like my belief though is I think like clearly it's going to be pretty revolutionary in terms of the way that we work. At Atlassian, both in terms of the products we're delivering to our customers, but also how we're using AI. I think agentic AI and this idea of having AI agents that form part of your team that can, do specific work and tasks for you as an extension of your team, really, really helpful. The ability for, an AI agent to, brainstorm a whole bunch of topics or ideas or, go out there and do some research and bring me back some data and insights. Super, super valuable. I certainly have an optimistic view of AI where, I think AI is going to help us just like any other, technology change has over the past, however many thousands of years. It will help us as humans be smarter, make better decisions, work faster, all the rest of it. And I think, if we can embrace AI agents as part of our team, I don't think they're going to replace our jobs anytime soon, but I certainly think they can help us do our jobs more effectively and go do some of those things that we don't either have the time for or maybe aren't particularly one of our strengths. I'm all for it.
What about like on the Atlassian product side of things? I'm guessing a lot of software now is going to be talking and focusing about AI. One of the challenges is like everyone's talking about AI. How do you as a product marketer, like I just see every company now is like, boom, I can't even open an app. I open an app and it's like, try our new AI enabled tools. And I'm like, man, that's cool, but challenging time to be a marketer to like, how do you, even if it's true, how do you make people believe?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, like clearly everything has been washed with AI at this point. So standing out is very, very difficult. I'm not sure I've got any massive insights here except, no, I really don't know, to be honest with you. It's a very difficult thing to try and stand out in this current landscape of just AI washing.
All right, I'll accept that answer.
That was a terrible sidestep, but just not.
You just said I don't know.
I don't need to add any more fuel on the AI fire, to be totally honest with
you. What are you excited about in marketing right now? It could be specific to your company or just things you're seeing in the market. What has you excited to do this job?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have always been interested in like technology as a force for good. Like I think there's a lot of different, not just technology, but marketing as well. Like, there's a lot of different marketing that we could possibly do. One of the things that I'm really inspired about at Atlassian and what I'm doing right now is we're helping to make, let me say this in my own words, it's certainly not the tagline, but we're helping to make work suck less. Let me say that, just going back to my earlier statements about how much work sucked post-pandemic. In many different ways, our products, the way we're helping our customers is just to improve, the way that we all work and engage with each other. And I am inspired by the idea that I can look back on my career and, back on my life. And when we get to that point, and it's like this horrible thing happened in the world with the pandemic, everything changed in terms of how we worked. It was a little bit bumpy for a while, and I helped play a role in making that better and bringing some, joy back to work and some, helping to in some way make a difference in terms of the way that we work and just having fun and joy in doing it.
Yeah, I could support that. I'll retweet that. Let's make work suck less. Let's
there you go.
Have more fun. Let's find our strengths, understand our weaknesses, double down on the strengths. Let's do more async work and let's be the best marketing team and let's have more fun at work. Matt, thank you, sir. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me on our podcast here. We'll link to all your stuff. If you're listening to this, my favorite CTA is which we get them every week. My favorite CTA is when the guest ends up sending me a screenshot of like messages people send them. So I want you to go to find Matt on LinkedIn. I want you to message him and connect with him. Be like, heard your interview with Dave. Love it, love it, love it. If he gets at least 3 of those, I bet you I could get like a Atlassian t-shirt or something. I think that takes 3 messages to get a t-shirt. No, I'm just kidding. Well, send Matt a message. Matt, I enjoyed hanging out with you, talking to you. Hope you have a great summer. Let's make work suck less. Send more looms, and we'll keep watching what you guys are doing out there.
I appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right.
Cheers.